Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining us for another MICA member spotlight, today featuring the folks at Entwist. My name is Kyle McCall. I'm the Director of Commercialization Services with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation and our MICA program. We will get started here in just another moment. We'll give another couple minutes for folks to sign in and log in and participate in the webinar, because we are expecting quite a few people here. So we'll just give it another minute and then we'll turn it over to the folks at Entwist. All right. While we are waiting, I just want to let you know, should you have questions along the way for this webinar, please put them in the chat. All right. There's the Q&A functionality there, but if you put them in the chat, everyone can see them and we can actually respond to them directly, because we do have a couple other Entwist folks in here with us that will be monitoring the chat and answering your questions as we go along. All right. So please use the chat functionality to answer your question, to ask your questions. Well, if they come in while I'm doing my intro, there's no harm done. So once again, thank you all for taking the time to be with us today to participate in this webinar. We appreciate you taking the time to listen in and hear all about this very interesting company that we've got called Entwist. Again, my name is Kyle McCall. I'm the Director of Commercialization Services with MICA and the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation. Happy to answer any questions about what we do after the fact as we get going here. But just generally speaking, we support the development and commercialization of new mining technologies here in Canada. Yes, and when we also do things like this, where we shine a spotlight on very interesting technologies that you should know about and can impact the mining industry to great effect. And so with us today, we've got Kyle Parada, the Director of Business Development with Entwist, as well as Sunil Vedula, the co-CEO at Entwist, to talk a little bit more about their company, their solution, and why you should care about the solution that they're bringing to market today. All right, so with that said, I will throw it over to you, Kyle and Sunil.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, good evening, or welcome to everyone joining us from around the globe. That's the reason for saying three things. I'm Sunil Vedula, and alongside my colleague, Kyle Parada, we are thrilled to have you here. First of all, we really appreciate you spending your precious time to attend this webinar. Look, we all know mining industry, just like any other industry, is going through a lot of changes, and for good reasons. And probably this is the best time for people to be in mining industry with the current metal prices and the boom in AI, because AI cannot be possible without mining industry. Let's put it that way. And this increases the demand for precious metals and rare earths even more. However, there are looming problems that mining industry needs to tackle urgently. Declining ore grades, rising costs, they're not just headlines, they are daily battles. You guys know about it pretty better than us. Today, we are not just talking about incremental gains. We're talking about a new framework called Mine to Mill 2.0. This is about stabilizing your feed, crushing through your throughput targets, maximizing recovery rates while driving costs down. Let's get started. Before we move on, some housekeeping items. We have a packed 45 to 50 minutes of pure value coming your way, followed by a 10 to 15-minute Q&A at the very end to tackle your toughest questions. But as Kyle mentioned, feel free to type any questions in the chat room, and those will be answered by our PhDs in metallurgy and mining, Ilya and Roberto, who are part of our product management group. A quick favor, please keep those microphones muted so everyone can hear the insights clearly. But don't get too comfortable. We have an interactive polling system running throughout this session. We want your input, your experiences, and your data to understand your problems even better. Stay alert and engaged, and let's make this as interactive as possible. So what's on the agenda today? So we will first want to talk about who we are at Enquest, and why we are so obsessed with this space. Then we'll briefly mention, what is this, why we consider this current Mind to Mill 1.0 as a broken promise. And we have all heard this before, but how we see massive information loss, massive cost of hidden feed variability in terms of throughput loss and energy consumption. And that's why we want to introduce this Mind to Mill 2.0, through which we have seen recognizable value across all of our customers with proven case studies. And after, we will talk about a framework, how you can engage with us, right? So moving on to who we are at Enquest. So let's just understand this, that we are not just a software company. We are a mission-driven organization with a very clear purpose, and we pride ourselves on our subject matter expertise on geology, metallurgy, and then comes the AI and data science. And we are here to empower your people, specifically your geologists, planners, metallurgists, operators on the front lines, and of course the C-suite, by giving them the data-driven solutions and the recommendations they need to excel. So our goal is bold, that we are on a journey to unlock $1 billion in previously inaccessible value for our partners. And we also, during this pursuit, as per our calculations, we anticipate to remove 37 million tons of carbon emissions. So how we actually do it? Our philosophy is built on a technical stack that moves you from noise to clarity. It begins with data integration. We can take anywhere from your 3D block models, sensor data, all of that. And Kyle will talk, my colleague Kyle will talk about it in a bit. But we take all that, break those silos that you have, and we apply anomaly detection to catch deviations before they become disasters. Our predictive models forecast what's coming next. And finally, our prescriptive AI basically converts all of this into actionable recommendations and set points to drive that performance, so that you can see that throughput increase and energy consumption decrease. This is all possible due to our team that consists of specialists such as data scientists, geologists, metallurgists, and all of them together, subject matter expertise plus AI, like reinforcement learning models, and that together has delivered over $330 million in value across 15 plus mine sites, almost $2 million per mine site. And the evidence is in our partnerships. As you can see, the list of customers that we have, like OceanaGold, Goldfields to Vale, and Suncor, right? And it's because of our focus on the ROI that we have 100% satisfaction and 0% customer churn throughout our last 8 to 9 years history. So why this webinar now? It's very clear. The industry has been promised mile to mill optimization for years, right? Yet most sites still rely on average grades, static stockpile assumptions, manual reconciliation, and postmortems after value is already lost. The reality is this: the cost of variability has never been higher. And especially now with metal prices at an all-time high, which is great, but so are energy and the reagent costs. Ore bodies are more complex than ever. You got to drill more and more, and the tolerance for surprises is going down, especially in this metal price environment. So this session is about how leading operations are moving from a reactive nature to more predictive outcomes and coordinated action before the mill feels the pain. Over to you, Kyle.
Awesome. Thank you, Sunil. And so I wanted to start with what Sunil mentioned, which is the broken promise of mine to mill. So when mine to mill was first introduced, the promise was fairly clear: optimize the entire value chain from geology to final recovery. However, in practice, most implementations stalled at blast to grind optimization, focusing on fragmentation, throughput, and energy efficiency. Areas like stockpiles, blending, haulage were still handled in isolation, and those separate systems were managed by different teams with competing or different KPIs. That disconnect ultimately meant that variability in ore properties was handed off rather than managed. Instead of closing the loop and doing a full circle, mines reacted late after losses showed up in recovery, throughput, and ultimately costs and profit. The path forward, as Sunil alluded to, is mine to mill 2.0. It starts where mine to mill 1.0 stopped, but it reconnects the chain so that variability can be predicted and actively managed, not just measured after the fact. Now, before we dive into the solutions and what we want to talk about, I think it's important for us to go through a few of our client case studies to help identify that problem. And as you can see, our first poll question is in the right-hand corner there. We've designed it so that you can use your phone to scan the QR code, and it's going to give you a poll. I think we have 4 poll questions coming up throughout the course of this session to help drive some of that engagement. This first question is going to be mainly about how you and your operation are experiencing variability, and whether that's a grade variability, hardness variability, or something of the both. So I'll give you a second to do that, and then I'll move to the next page, and we'll continue on. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've worked with our clients to understand where this promise kind of fell apart in terms of the original mine to mill 1.0. Most mines begin with well-documented and strong block level grade models built from grade controlled drilling, and it's fairly well documented. I think the geologists in the call today will know that there's pretty good block model and polygon software out there. And while uncertainty does exist, it's unavoidable, such as blast movement, it's well understood and can be reduced significantly with appropriate measurements and simulation tools. The first major loss of information occurs, though, at the loading site. So you think about the truck. Rather than linking truckloads to underlying block by block context, many workflows assign a single polygon averaged grade to that load. And this immediately erases that local heterogeneity that the grade control was designed to capture. In reality, what that means is a truckload is not is a single grade, when in reality it's not the case. And it is a better representation as probability distributions in grade rather than drawn from multiple blocks. Grade is also only a part of the story. Attributes such as mineralogy, hardness, and other material properties play a critical role in those downstream processing performances. Yet fleet management systems, or FMS systems, are not configured to carry this richness of information through the load and haul chain. The example that's to the right of this illustrates that variability in a quick snapshot. So one of our clients was basically showing us that there is several medium to high grade polygons in one of their locations of their mine. And the actual material spans both grade and highlights how much detail is lost when the load is just simplified to a single value average. The second case study that I kind of want to touch on that relates to information loss is at the stockpile. Now, not everyone has stockpiles and stockpile strategies, but if you have variable ore, you probably are at least considering stockpiles as a strategy. The truck dumps are already carrying average grades, as we discussed in the first slide there, but they're further aggregated and averaged over long-term windows, weekly, monthly, sometimes yearly. And then sometimes there's no suitable stockpile model at all, which essentially means the pile becomes a black box, which is really tough when you're trying to accurately reclaim it later on. When operation later do reclaim this from a ROM pad finger or a long-term stockpile, the material is not reclaimed with a perfect blend of averages. It's reflective of its local neighborhood, if you will. So i.e. where the shovel and the loader is digging from. And that means that the plant feed inherently in the piles is spatially variable and not actually indicative of the other elements in that ore. So as this example kind of shows, you have a typical ROM pad that we were looking at for a low-grade stockpile at one of our gold mines that we work with. And you can see on the right-hand side just how variable that pile is. Now, what they were dealing with before we were able to help them was what's on the left. And it was basically averaged out in quite a stark contrast. And so the variability is often completely hidden from geology, planning, and metallurgy. And this is what we're really trying to talk about with this webinar and what we're trying to address at the core with our products. Now, before we dive right into that, I do want to talk a little bit about the hidden variability that lies in these general averages. So, as the title suggests, the hidden cost of variability is an interesting one because it's not immediately what is thought when we are talking about economics at a mine. The plant pays for variability in three immediate ways: lost throughput, loss recovery, and higher operating costs, whether that's reagent costing, energy costs, wear and tear, downtime, scheduled or unplanned. Throughput suffers when feed gets hardness or clay content or moisture or fragmentation that unexpectedly shifts that feed and forces the mill to slow down to stay stable. When we look at things like recovery suffering, that is typically also because of the change in ore coming through the feed, and not the operators don't have the tools necessarily to be able to adjust to those quick enough to respond. And then ultimately the costs rise because that variability drives more frequent interventions, whether that's reagent overuse to protect recovery, higher energy per ton to maintain grind size, increase wear and tear, any of those things. And so what's interesting here is in all of those, they're driven by variability, but variability isn't the key source there. So hidden variability is actually the most damaging cost because it forces mines to act more conservatively. Instead of running true optimization at their nameplate, what ends up happening is, to avoid excursions, they leave revenue at the table. And with the price of gold as an example, where it is right now, we don't really want to put you in a position where you're doing that. Now, what we're going to do next is discuss how Mine-to-Mill 2.0 makes that feed variability visible, predictable, and manageable. And before we do that, I just want to clarify and show this last case study with a fairly large gold mine, about a 500,000 kilo-ounce gold mine per year operation. And their mean feed grade is 5 grams per ton, so quite good. And their coefficient of variance was about 0.15 after we started looking at their data, regardless of their low, medium, and high grade. So you apply those average grade coefficients, and that implies a variance of about 70% of the time. That actual grade can go up or down by almost 1 gram per ton. Now, looking at the reagent schedules that most companies deal with, that's quite a big swing for them. And so since that operation had no visibility into actual grade, they had to assume that average grade of 5. And if you take a look at the scenarios here, you'll see the first one, they risked under dosing, which was losing a significant amount of recovery, leading to about $75 million in losses if they assumed that the grade was the average and things were less than that. The other two scenarios swing in the other direction, where they were overdosing, and that was had the potential to cost them cyanide costs for their ore. In both cases, scenario 2 and 3, obviously that's better than scenario 1, but it proved that scenario 2 would be the best or the optimal trade-off between recovery and that reagent costing. Now, I think what's important to clarify here is that all three of these scenarios indicate losses. there's no way to improve this without knowing the actual grade. And that's very difficult. And that's something that Entwist is getting very good at being able to do. Even in the optimal scenario, as we look at too, there's still $4.2 million in losses due to excessive grade reagent costs or reduced recovery costs or losses, reduced recovery losses. And that's just because of the hidden variability, hence why we're meeting today. Now, before we dive into our tech stack and what that looks like, we have a second poll question. And this one's basically around the three different types of lost information that your operation could experience. So we'd love to be able to learn more about how you, or what resonates most with you in terms of haulage and loading, stockpiles and reclamation, or hidden feed variability at the plant. Maybe you have all three. Maybe it's not a problem for you. If it's not a problem for you, you can leave. But I think it's a problem for most people. I'll give you 1 second to take a look at that. I also need to have my tea because I'm talking a lot. Okay, so up to this point, we've shown the core problem. Mines have granular knowledge of their variability. And that information gets averaged through load and haulage systems, stockpiling, and reporting, as well as direct set point control at the mill. This results in the plant being forced to operate reactively, where it is actually possible to be proactive and address these issues in a more managed and strategic way. Mine to Mill 2.0 essentially answers the problem, and it's a unified framework that delivers on the original premise of mine to mill. At a high level, it does a few key things. One, it preserves information and restores visibility. It carries ore properties forward like distributions, not just single averages, as material moves through trucks and stockpiles ultimately to the ROM pad. And it builds a continuously updating view of what's where in stockpiles and ROM pads. That includes both uncertainty and variance included in that information. Now, the second piece is predicting outcomes, which translate that expected feed property and their uncertainty into predictable plant impacts using geometallurgical models and our proprietary algorithms to help make better predictions for those outcomes. And then ultimately, those actions don't do anything unless you can coordinate and do some significant work to help align geology, planning, and metallurgy around shared decisions, reclaiming strategies, blending, routing, operational targets. All of those things can be proactively managed and help you with your variability problems. And so we're going to touch on that in a little while. Ultimately, tracking ore and feed properties provide a basis for better blending and mill set points. And this can map operational outcomes to those feed types. In the next few slides, we're going to go through the technology layers that we implement and what each layer does and how that will benefit geologists, planners, and metallurgists, as well as technical services and operational folks like general managers and C-suite folks too. All right. So what are the technology layers that we've been building with this Mine to Mill 2.0? They are track, plan, and optimize. The track layer is focused on preserving ore properties and their variability from the pit to reclamation. And really, we want to drive past just a single average value. This ensures no crucial data is lost during that material handling process. The plan layer builds on this tracking by forecasting recoveries and throughputs using geometallurgical models that we've created. And it helps planners understand what they can expect in the future, as well as making adjustments before they arise. Finally, we have the optimization layer, which helps decides and acts and evaluates those multiple scenarios in the plan layer to evaluate reclamation, blending, and routing decisions based on multiple objectives, like stable feed, throughput, recovery, cost, or energy efficiency. This ensures that all decisions are aligned and made with the operation's overall goal, which is predominantly production maximization, but with ESG goals or other types of commitments, this is a option for you to be able to change your specific operational goals depending on your mine and your unique mine characteristics. So now I'm going to dive into the layers a little bit more specifically. So we have the track layer first. As the tagline says, know your ore better. The track layer exists to solve the problem we just described. When ore information gets averaged away, as soon as that material starts moving, what we need to be able to do is track and preserve that ore knowledge from the ore body through load and haul, stockpiles and ROM pads, and reclamation, so that these downstream decisions are based on what's actually going into the plant, not a general single average. What that means is instead of assigning a single grade or a number to a specific truck or dump, the track layer represents material as an expected value plus the uncertainty, because real ore is never just a single number. The track also extends beyond grade and includes properties that drive plant performance like hardness, clay, sulfide content, and other specific attributes that any particular site can attribute to that matter. Ultimately, the outcome of this layer is to create a continuously updating view of where that ore is, so that you have an accurate understanding of your inventory with clear confidence levels that geologists, planners, and metallurgists can use for planning and control. Now, moving to the planning layer, what I find interesting about the planning layer is, if you allow me to digress for a second, I think the famous Mike Tyson always said everybody has a plan until they're punched in the mouth. And I think that really resonates with the planners I've worked with at mine sites. And this plan layer is effectively trying to create multiple scenarios to help with that. So if the tracking layer answers, what do we have and where is it? The plan layer is really trying to answer, what is the plant's actual plan and what are they actually going to see next? So the plan layer takes the track inventory across the stockpiles and through loadage and forecasts that expected feed property over time based on how material is moving and reclaimed. Instead of planning against a single blended average, what you're doing is evaluating scenarios with different reclamation sequences, blending strategies, or routing operations and time horizons, whether that's an hour by hour, a shift by shift, day by day, week by week, all the way up to long-term planning on a macro level. Now, for planners, what this benefit means is that it allows them to get a plan that reflects real-time constraints and real-time material behaviors, meaning that schedules are feasible and variability is managed, not discovered late. For metallurgists, this means that early visibility into the variability coming into the feed allows you to make upcoming changes to hardness, mineralogy, and grade distribution in your control set points. So basically, you're able to create a control strategy that can be adjusted proactively rather than reactively. I think you're starting to see the general theme of proactive versus reactive. Planning ultimately needs to go beyond simply just forecasting feed properties, though. With the help of geometallurgical models that we provide, it can be extended to provide a glimpse into future operational outcomes such as recovery and throughput. Having months and years of granular feed data makes it possible to combine it with historical data to provide operational outcomes that create data-driven geometallurgical models free of laboratory biases. Okay, and so the last of the technology layers is the optimize layer, which is trying to answer the question, what options should we run? And more importantly, why? So the optimization layer operationalizes the insights from the track and planning layers to provide guidance to planners and plant operators. Optimizing evaluates reclamation, blending, and routing decisions against the objectives that matter. Stable feed, throughput and recovery, costs, compliance. And for planners, what that means is they can pick a scenario that best aligns with the production targets and operational constraints. For metallurgists, it means fewer surprises and fewer upsets. And ultimately, for your operation in general, what it means is there's an explainable guidance on what is the best set point to apply and why. Now, we're going to dive into some case studies that represent and showcase exactly what those track, plan, and optimization layers look like in the real world. But as you can see, our QR co-friend has shown up on a presentation slide again. We have a third poll here. This one is basically around the three layers that we just described, so track, plan, and optimize. And we'd love to know which of these are currently, do you think, are most valuable to your operation? And so the way I think about this is track is setting that foundation. Plan is being able to use some of that data to make better decisions. And then optimize is obviously taking it to the next level and making decision-based or data-driven decisions. So I'll give you a quick second to do that. So the first case study is with Aura Minerals, and it was implementing the track foundation. So Aura Minerals is a Brazilian mining company and is one of Entuist's long-standing customers. Many of our products and features actually were shaped through real-world use at their operations. I'm going to share two examples on this slide specifically about how Mine-to-Mill 2.0 principles helped Aura. At one of their mines during their ramp-up phase, truck destinations and controls were fairly relaxed to boost productivity. I think it's a common thing for any new mine to get ramp up to scale quickly and as fast as possible. It's something I hear a lot. And when Entuist implemented our ore tracking software, it revealed frequent misallocations. Now, what does that mean? That means high-grade ore was being sent to low-grade stockpiles, and in some cases, even worse, waste piles. While the low-grade ore was then en route to the ROM pad and being produced first, or processed first. These issues went largely unnoticed because polygon averages grades were masking that local variability. By visualizing the problem and quantifying its financial impact, the operation actually identified over $500,000 in ore lost just to waste each year. And by revising their procedures and improving their truck destination planning with our visibility, it helped them reduce their ore misallocation by 98%, with Entuist providing continuous monitoring to ensure that further occurrences are no longer happening. Now, if you can see on the screenshot, you'll see that the number of ore dumps in the waste pile were significantly reduced to zero. Now, what also is interesting is that there, because of this misallocation had been occurring in large volumes for years, that high and mid-grade ore had been accumulating in a low-grade stockpile that they didn't know they had. And so what we were actually able to uncover with our tracking and stockpile modeling was a uplift of about 100,000 ounces worth of previously unaccounted for medium and high grade ore. And that resulted in an immediate boost of $11 million that they could immediately reclaim. That really emphasizes the point of the track layer. And the main implementation challenge was inconsistent data, such as varying dates and formats and fragmented file storage. We were able to help work with them to overcome these issues. And it really shows the dedication that our product and tech team have put into ensuring that we can work with any type of mine, whether it's one with all the data and the bells and whistles, or one that's using log sheets. We have a plan for all of them. All right, so now I'm going to move to the next case study, which is regarding the planning layer. So a gold operation was preparing for a stockpile-only feed once their pit closed. Estimating stockpile reserves and making accurate plans became critical to their operations because it's all they were going to have left. So the mine engaged with N-Twist to deliver an independent copper and gold estimate and block level confidence model. Beyond the corporate risk of grade write-downs, the site needed granular uncertainty to run short and midterm planning scenarios. Now, while stockpile drilling was considered, their C-suite and their executive team really were not interested in the costs of drilling. And further, those traditional geostatistics can't deliver the level of certainty between the high and low grade materials in such close proximity on the stockpile. So ultimately, N-Twist was brought in to use a probabilistic ore flow model from the pit to the truck to the stockpile to assign a probabilistic source and for those dump locations and generate a grade distribution with quantified variance. The model, as you can kind of see down in the right-hand corner there, validated the site's estimates while also quantifying the uncertainty. The differences that we were able to pick up were an actual slight reduction in the amount of copper by 1.7%. But more importantly, we saw a 0.7 increase in gold, indicating, especially with the prices where they're at actual net value increase, which made all of them quite happy. Now, what's important with this is that by mapping both where the grade is, but also the confidence interval, it enabled scenario-based planning, which then can lead to blending high and low confidence material at the ROM pad. And basically, the stockpile started being treated as an actual resource rather than a man-made stockpile. And so the key takeaway here is that the planning layer makes plans on distributions, not just averages. And what it leads to is not just grade estimates, but it's a mapped confidence map, making uncertainty a controllable variable. And finally, tying it all back together and closing that loop, it's the case study with a large gold mine, the largest gold mine in New Zealand, actually. Combining the track and the planning layers are all and well, but they're really a means to an end, and that end is maximizing production for the operation. So this is where the optimization layer really comes in and makes all of that work and effort going into managing your variability worthwhile. N-Twist deployed its ore tracking and stockpile modeling, as well as reclamation scenario analysis at the largest gold mine operation in New Zealand to shift plant control from a reactive to proactive approach. And using forecast feed grades with confidence limits and cross-functional collaboration, we are actually able to see some significant results. Some of those leading results are increased throughput as well as increased recovery by 1.6%, which is huge when we're talking about gold where it is right now. On the ROM pad, N-Twist provided simple, practical bucket sequences to improve feed consistency. And grade forecasts were shared amongst planners, metallurgists, and planning teams in real time to provide operators with the most clear feed that they could do to enable Cibex dosage control in their flotation circuit. These results were quite impactful. So in addition to about $600,000 a year in avoidable Cibex costs, so reagent costs, due to poor grade visibility, it actually also helped shift the risk to recovery losses. And it was determined that dosing in high grade feed situations could risk them losing about $5 million in lost revenue due to underdosing. And so it made a strong case to create a strong closed loop control system, which we are now operating at the mine. Here, the key learning is that success requires, it's not a suggestion, it requires cross-discipline alignment with simple execution strategies and robust data handling. Addressing those gaps that we've talked about thus far in fleet and data and haulage to lead to new proprietary algorithms that Entwist can help build your mine with, ultimately creating a product that is long-term, both viable and successful for your operation. So what does this all really mean? We've touched on the technology layers, but let's bring this back to Mine-to-Mill 2.0. At its core, Mine-to-Mill 2.0 is a digital twin technology. It's dynamic, probabilistic, and mirrors the material flow in real time. That bridges that gap between geology and operations. Every truck that moves, every reclaim event continuously updates. And you can see there's a 4-step process to this that starts with geology, goes through planning, operations, and ultimately to the plant and metallurgists. Critically, digital twins don't just track the present, they predict outcomes so that simulations can be created, tested, and ultimately optimized. In 4 steps, the results shift your operation from a trial and error decision to a confident, optimized solution. What this does is creates a continuous feedback loop where every cycle through the value chain generates new information, and that result is a continuous improvement that removes those traditional silos. Now, Mine-to-Mill 2.0 creates a continuous feedback loop across the entire value chain. Entwist has a platform. The platform that manages this value chain is called Entwist MineMax. The suite includes modules OreMax, Dynamax, PlanMax, and MillMax, each with tailored specific parts of the process to help different people. OreMax will help geo teams provide block level visibility into their stockpiles and their modeling, and treating the stockpile like a resource, tracking tons, grade, and properties from pit to pile with full traceability. It's going to give you that confidence in long-term planning using probabilistic stockpile models, and it's also going to allow you to get early detection if there's loss. Some of the results some of our clients are seeing right now is just, let alone $2 million just in saved costs from avoiding having to drill those stockpiles. Dynamax provides planners with a granular and real-time ROM pad visibility. So it allows you to be specific in what you want to get your feed forecast to look like. It improves planning and plant stability by generating short-term feed plans. And further, it creates fast, transparent, and collaborative workflows to create updated inventories from dump and reclamation events in real time. This is really where you're starting to see that recovery gain, as well as limiting variance in your feed by up to 30%. The PlanMax helps the mine ops teams with a standalone tool. It can be standalone or integrated into existing planning software like Deswick. And it allows the mine operators to dispatch their teams quickly, efficiently, and allows them to execute the plan in a proactive way in real time. And then finally, the last bit of that is MillMax, which is obviously going to help the metallurgists and the plants in the room, the plant team in the room, And this has really helped them with real-time mill optimization using live feed forecasts, especially when we're talking about soft sensors, mill circuits, estimates for difficult to measure variables like P80, as well as giving economic insights. And so we're actually helping recover that. Now, what I wanted to do, this is our last poll real quick before we kind of come into the home stretch. There's only a couple slides left, but this last one's going to be about your familiarity with these types of products. Are you familiar with the software that is available to help in these specific areas? We'd love to get a better sense from you on what that looks like for you at your operation. Okay, so finally, and most importantly, I'd say, is what can we do about it, or what can you do about it? So as you can see, quick wins in 90 days. N-Twist delivers measurable value faster, deliverable, let me make sure I get that correct for everyone. Deliverable, measurable value quickly without multi-year transformations and programs. We deliver quickly. MindMax focuses on targeting those capabilities that directly convert ore variability into controlled advantages within weeks, not months. What you're going to be able to unlock, as the presentation shows, is really in 3 sequences. So obviously the first is going to be that ore tracking. You will be able to start tracking material from the blast point and build out data foundations that are setting you up for optimization. The immediate benefit here for geologists is fewer misdumps and more predictable feed. When we're talking about stockpile digital twins, that's going to enable probabilistic stockpiles to capture material variability and optimize reclamation strategies. And so obviously that immediate benefit there is going to be reduced uncertainty and more confidence in planning. And then finally, we want to take that to the next level. And so from week 12 on, that will focus on the deployment of feed-focused process controls. And obviously, this is going to help stabilize the operation and optimize recovery, which are the immediate benefits you can expect within 90 days or the first quarter of our implementation together. So that's what you're going to get from it. What are we going to do to help get you there? And so this is our 90-day blueprint. The first couple weeks involve us accessing your current data, identifying gaps, identifying the quality of the data, and looking at it from a cross-department view. So that includes geology, planning, as well as operations and processing to establish baselines, data collection, and protocols. Weeks 3 to 6 is when you're going to really start to be able to play with the digital twins and being able to have a closer look at what those stockpiles actually represent. So this is a visual representation that mirrors the real world and will validate against operational data. And then from week 7 to 10, you're going to start to be able to calibrate predictive models using those digital twins to create forecasts and plans to ultimately improve your throughput and recovery. And then from weeks 11 on or 12 on, what you're going to be able to do is start to see some optimization strategies that you can have backup, have a validated prediction for that you can back up with some meaningful data. And you're going to be able to make tactical improvements and expand that strategic plan across the entire value chain. So finally, what are the next steps? What can you do today to help do that? We will provide you, anyone on this call will provide you a free complimentary N-Twist assessment. So we're going to quantify your potential value of your operations, your uplift, and any current performances to identify opportunities. What we're going to do is we're going to analyze your data, reveal ore variability patterns and impacts on performance. It's going to evaluate your stockpile management, maybe you don't have them, and maybe it makes sense for you to have some. Material tracking, blending practices, all that kind of stuff. But really, we want to create a baseline of understanding of the challenges and the opportunities, and we want to quantify that for you. So we're going to create a tailored roadmap, which we deliver, and it's basically an end-to-end MindMax adoption plan that prioritizes the impact and the feasibility. A big focus for us is driving on quick wins and long-term optimization initiatives at the same time. We know that we want results quick, but we can't sacrifice that can't sacrifice the long term just for that. And so we max or balance both of those out. And so really the big thing that we want to take out of this is you should book your assessment with us today and start unlocking some of that measurable value. I don't know, Sunil, if you want to hop back in and say thank you or whatnot. My information is down at the bottom, so feel free to reach out to me. I would love you to. But in terms of everything, thank you for joining us. We really hope that this was insightful for you, and we gave you some stuff to consider. Sunil?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kyle. And so one thing I think before we delve into Q&A quickly, I just want to talk about is at Entwist, we are not just talking about value, we're talking about trust. We understand that trust cannot be built in overnight. And that's why our pricing is, our pricing guarantees performance. It's called performance guaranteed pricing, outcome linked pricing. And we partnered with Export Development Canada, right? One of the very few startups to do that. So you will notice that kind of trust in our the way we engage with you and the pricing and all that we share the burden of providing that ROI. That's one of the main reason why customers have started with us in 2018 are still with us, right? So that's one thing I wanted to talk about as one of the big differentiation about Entwist. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. I appreciate you mentioning that. That's a big benefit for us, especially in the space that we participate in. It's important that we build that trust, and the easiest way to trust is by showing that value, which I think you nailed. So in terms of the questions here, I was wondering maybe I can read them out and then we can talk through them, Sunil. We have probably about 7 minutes here. So the first, what types of data does Mind-to-Mill 2.0 pull from operations? So fleet management data or equipment, and what is the fleet management system required? So the answer is we take what is available at the site. Fleet management is a definite benefit, but we have a product that can go past those requirements or those limitations. As we kind of mentioned a bit earlier in the presentation, a few of our mine sites are quite remote, so they have problems with GPS, they have problems with their data being consistently stored historically, and that's not a problem for us. In terms of that specific type of data, obviously, we have experienced quite a diverse set of different types of data, and worked with different types of companies, whether that's a company like MS4M, Cat MineStar. There's quite a Wenco, just to name a couple. And so we're really trying to collect a whole bunch of data, and it's typically based on what that mine has. And so that's why when we talk about that assessment, that's exactly what we're going through there. So I think if you have any specific questions, I'd love to have you reach out to me a bit more on that. The next question, how do you actually track ore blocks at, say, SMU support from the mine to the ROM stock to in-plant stocks to mill? High precision GPS or excavation loaders? So that's a good question, and I think it probably makes sense to come from Ilya, who is going through the chat here and responding to those as well. So I'll let him manage those ones. I only get the softballs. There's a question, where is these methods being implemented, and were their targets for production met in timeline and on time? The short answer is yes. The long answer is connect with us, and I'm happy to show you a little bit more about those case studies. As Sunil mentioned right off the top, we have 100% retention and no churn with our mining company or mining clients. So we are helping them meet their production targets, and quite on time. I have one that's in my mind that immediately comes to mind here that I think would be an interesting one. So I encourage you to reach out to me after, and we can set up a time to talk about that in more detail. Is actual production data fed back into the block model, and are the digital twins fed with real-time operational data and consistently updated? My thought is that Eli probably can respond to that a bit better, but I would say yes. We have a big part of what we do is that close, or that full circle loop. Reconciliation is a big part of that. Yeah, Sunil?
So just one question. I just wanted to let everyone know that every question will be answered either here, or we will send. We have your information, so we will send a appropriate reply to you within today or by this weekend, something like that. But you will get an answer to these questions.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that. But yeah, in terms of the reconciliation loop, we do that in near real time. And so a big thing that we've heard about challenges at operations is related to, sure, reconciliation comes, but it comes a couple months after the fact. We are closing the gap on that, so that reconciliation and data being fed back into the source material is happening in an effective and timely way. A new one just came in here. So for historical and existing stockpiles, how will Mine to Mill 2.0 be able to estimate stockpile grade without drilling and stockpile information? So that's a great question, and that's exactly what we did in the planning case study that we shared kind of in the middle of that presentation. I think it probably warrants a follow-up discussion, but what we're able to do is create a probabilistic model using a variety of things. And in that specific one, we used GPS tracking from the loaders, but we have other techniques that can be used for other parts. This stockpile was being built for like 20 years, and so it had good GPS data in some spots and not so much in other spots. And we have the tools to create a good model for you. What is the background?
Yeah, I can answer this one, Kyle.
Great.
In terms of the background of our team, we have Ilya, who is our Chief Product Officer. He's a PhD in metallurgy. Apart from that, we have Roberto, who is a mining PhD. And apart from that, we have multiple mining PhDs in India. And apart from geology and metallurgy, we also partner with world famous AI group led by Richard Sutton, who is a Field Medal Award winner in AI. So we work with University of Alberta, world-renowned center for AI. So one of the things why we are able to predict create probabilistic models without drilling is because Earth has a pattern, right? It's not like a stock price prediction where things can be very random. There are patterns which are not noticeable to human eye, but with reinforcement learning and other things, we can derive those patterns. And that's where both the subject matter expertise and AI fused together can really help. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's right at 10. So very quickly, I think we're going to be sending out our Mine to Mill playbook to everyone. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be able to allow you to download and start working on some of these things to get you in a really good position to help manage some of that feed and the hidden costs associated with it. Kyle?
Well, I just want to say thank you, gentlemen, for the enlightening webinar and sharing a little bit more about what N-Twist does with us in the group here. And appreciate your team answering those questions so diligently in the chat there. It's fantastic to see. Yeah, so, and again, thank you all for taking the time out to participate in this webinar. If you like what you see and are interested in more mining technologies, make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn or subscribe to our newsletter at our website at micanetwork.ca. Otherwise, that's it for today. Thank you so much. And tune in next time to see what we've got going in the Mining Innovation and Commercialization Accelerator. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Sunil. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. We appreciate it. Goodbye.